everybody and welcome to Mongolia. I am stood in front of the Mongolian Parliament building. En Altunkuyak, the Deputy Prime Minister of Mongolia, said, "Mongolia's democratic revolution would be incomplete if it didn't lead all the way to an economic revolution. Being in power or out of power is not important as long as the people get a fair and equal distribution of the wealth from their underground natural resources. See equality before the law. See a change in the vertical structure of authority. Watch elimination of poverty and live under a transparent government." These are exciting times to be living and working in Mongolia, and over the next 5 to 10 years the Mongolian people could be about to see all these aspirations come true. So why is Mongolia standing on the verge of this great social and economical change? I went to the Museum of Geology and Mineral Resources at the Mongolian University of Science and Technology to have a look. So the Mongolian Museum of Geology and Mineral Resources is home to a fantastic collection of rocks, stones and minerals that Mongolia has. And Mongolia's biggest asset is its coal reserves. Now, Mongolia has proven reserves of 24 billion tonnes, which will put it at 10th place in the highest coal producers in the world. Some estimates say that it could be as much as 150 billion tonnes. Exploration work is still going on. If it was the case, then that would put it third behind Russia and the USA as the world's biggest coal producers. Now, the world is still dependent on coal for 40% of its energy production, so there is still going to be a massive demand for Mongolia's coal, particularly as China's demands are growing exponentially, and China can't supply its own coal, and it's conveniently located for China, their neighbours. So China is actually going to become, hopefully, they're going to be a big buyer of Mongolian coal. And this is a map of Mongolia just showing where the coal resources are. And the biggest mine that they've got going is the Tolgai coal mine, which is just being developed now. So another one of Mongolia's treasures is copper. Mongolia has the world's largest undeveloped reserve of copper, and a huge mining complex is being developed at the Oyon Tolgai reserve in the Gobi. Now, when production starts in 2013, they expect to extract 500,000 tonnes of copper a year. Now, total world production of copper is 15 million tonnes, and demand is rising by 500,000 tonnes a year, which will put Mongolia in the top 10 copper producers in the world. And this map shows the copper deposits around Mongolia, and that's the copper deposit at Oyu Tolgai, the red and green circle, and above that is the black square, which is Tavan Tolgai. And you can also see the gold circles, which represent Mongolia's deposits of gold. Now, that's another rich that Mongolia has. They have a lot of gold and silver, and the Oyon Tolgai mine will also be producing, once it's in full production, about 18 tonnes of gold and 85 tonnes of silver every year. So Mongolia has a huge amount of coal and copper and gold reserves under its feet. But what does this wealth mean for the economy of Mongolia? First, I spoke to Ollie Belfit-Nash, who's from the UK, working in an investment bank here in Mongolia.
So, Ollie,
you for agreeing to see me today.
No worries. Right.
So, can you tell me a little bit about the economic fortune that's heading Mongolia's way?
Sure. Well, the big story in Mongolia at the moment is the mining, of course, and I think the best indication, one of the good indications on what's happening in Mongolia at the moment is the GDP of Mongolia, the product of what it produces, is about $6 billion US, and the mining revenue that's going to come in, the IMF have predicted that in 2014 this will be up at about 20% increasing, $6 billion, by a huge amount.
So in terms of GDP, a 10-20% growth is actually massive. When a country like the UK would be happy with a 1% or 2% growth in GDP.
Especially now, I mean, Mongolia is a tiny economy. It's got 3.2 million people. So I mean, these numbers have to be in relation to what Mongolia is. It's a small country, small economy, and it's on the verge of this extreme growth. In order to sustain this growth from China, your 1.3 billion people need housing. The amount of construction work, taking one sector, the amount of construction work in China needs a huge amount of steel. Steel is the main product that's going to be used in China to support this growth, to build more houses and construction. And for that, you need coal. You need coking coal in order to burn at high temperatures, melt the iron into steel. And so coal is now becoming a very, very high demand asset. And Mongolia has everything that China needs, really. It's right next door, very high quality coal, cheap export prices. And so, the amount of, China's been quoted as a sort of insatiable hunger for these resources, and Mongolia is now coming into production. It's right at the right time, right place, and China will be able to buy. Mongolia will be able to supply. To me, development is going to come in lots of shapes and sizes. This wave of money that's going to hit Mongolia will have potential for huge development for the country, for the infrastructure, right down to the individual salaries, jobs, living standards. So I think if I was going to say that, I think development work will be more now about managing the money coming in rather than trying to perhaps managing the sectors that need help, sort of in comparison to the mining sector, rather than trying to build up what's there. I mean, Mongolia is going to have a huge amount of growth, a huge amount of potential, and now it's about making sure it doesn't ruin what's not directly involved with the mining sector, I think.
So the Mongolian economy is set to boom, but it's far from plain sailing. It's going to be another 2 or 3 years before revenues start to come in. In the meantime, the agricultural sector shrank by 17% last year. Meat prices went down by 10%, but other food prices such as vegetables, bread and rice rose by 33%, and that hits the poorest most of all. So there's still quite a lot to do in the Mongolian economy to control inflation. I next talked to Jargal Saikan, who is an economist at the Hasbank and who has his own TV show on politics and the economy called De Facto. He is also the president of the campaign group Mongolians for Fair Taxes and Wise Spending. Hello Jargal, thank you for agreeing to meet me today.
Sure.
The first question, can you briefly tell me about the future and the current economic fortune of Mongolia?
Well, when we talk about fortune, I understand the living standard of every Mongolians go up. That's my understanding of fortune. Not the group of people who is benefiting the most, and the poor people are remaining poor. In that sense, we have still 1/3 of the country is in under poverty line. And yet we have been receiving huge now, by our economic size, revenue from mining. And I hope this revenue will transfer into such a, I would say, mechanism that everybody benefits in terms of job creation, salary, food, improving their living standard. In that sense, I hope Mongolia, with all this current forecasting, Mongolians will be better. That's how I see the future.
Thanks. And how will the Mongolian government ensure that this wealth and prosperity is divided amongst the population?
How do government shares?
Yes, how is the government planning to use the revenues to benefit the people?
Government is promising many things, like any government. And plus this government had promised a lot of cash to every citizen at our last election, which was not the best thing politically to do. That's why now before the next election, they want to deliver that promise. So it's a big burden on budget. And budget is becoming swollen, big. And otherwise those money could go to such a infrastructure projects where everybody benefit in a better way instead of cash. But however, the government is trying to also complete large projects which was otherwise impossible in this economy before. So hopefully this they have 100,000 apartments program in Ulaanbaatar city, where in fact half of the city living, a population living in outskirts of Ulaanbaatar in traditional dwellings. And if all this done properly, personally, it will be good social progress for the country.
So Jargal talked there of the 100,000 homes development. Now, the 100,000 homes development is exactly what it says, that there's a plan to build 100,000 new flats for Mongolian people. And as people who are living here and working here know, that half the population of Ulaanbaatar live in Gare districts and are extremely poor and live in severe and harsh conditions. Now, the government is finding it difficult to raise the capital for this, and it has tried issuing bonds at the stock exchange for the public to buy, but the public aren't really buying them, and they're not really aware of what bonds mean, and they don't really trust the government. So the government struggles to find the money for these projects, but at the same time it's giving money away to the people. Jargal told you there that they give 21,000 tugruks away to every citizen each month, and these policies are generally aimed at winning elections, and they're not strategically thought through, and they're not always the best ways of using the money for the benefit of the people. So how will the government make sure that the people receive a fair and equal distribution of the wealth? Well, they've set up the Tavan Tolgoi mining company, which is 100% state-owned, but it will be run by independent people, and they will tender contracts to foreign investors. Now, the government are making every Mongolian person a shareholder in this company. Each citizen is going to receive 536 shares. It's also issuing 21,000 shares to every business in Mongolia, and there are 51,000 registered businesses here. So there's a large proportion of the shares are going to business, and there is a worry that the Mongolian people want to make quick money and sell their shares immediately, and there's a potential that the big companies buy up all these shares, and eventually the shares find themselves in the hands of one or two major private shareholders. There are other major projects which need financing as well. The mining industry needs a lot of new infrastructure building, and there are plans to build a huge industrial park at Sainshand, close to the Tavan Tolgoi and Oyen Tolgoi coal and copper deposits. Now this industrial park will process all the copper and coal from those mines, and it will cost about $10 billion to finance. So there's still quite a lot of work to be done, and they're also planning to build a 1,100 kilometre railway line to link Sainshand with Choibolsan in the north. Choibolsan has a rail link to Russia, and they're hoping to export a lot of the coal and copper via the Russian line. Now again, this is a controversial decision because the coal deposits and copper deposits in the Gobi are close to China, and China will be a major buyer, and they're opting to export the majority of the coal through the longest route to Russia. Now China will buy some coal, and they will supply coal through this line, but they're spending most of the money on the railway line. So next I asked Jargal what this means for the Mongolian people. What do the Mongolian people need to do? And what does this mean for VSO and charities and NGOs like VSO who may also be considering withdrawing from Mongolia?
Well, there is Tavan Tolgoi, there is Oyen Tolgoi, and there are several other big projects by world size and standard. And wealth from those mines to come to everybody, as I said, but it goes through it goes through government, through taxes, and then this money, if it is created back for creating jobs, etc., that would be good. So what do we need for that as a Mongolian ordinary people? I think we should keep this government as small as possible, as transparent as possible. Everybody who is coming to the power to be accountable, so that they don't misuse the power, which frequently have happening in all governments all around the world, including the developed one. So I think in the developing countries we need even more people watch, we would say. That's why we try to be that voice, that watch, and we try to say that's wrong, that's good. So I think this mechanism of a democratic society, if it works, it's not that easy, but we have to get it working.
Yes. Now, there are many NGOs in Mongolia helping to develop health, education and the livelihoods of people. And VSO, the UK charity, is one of those NGOs. Now they have announced that they are withdrawing from Mongolia in 2014, and they cite Mongolia's economic fortune as the reason for this. How important are the work of these NGOs, and how can Mongolia continue its development without the likes of VSO helping?
Very interesting question. For democracy, that means for democracy, we need civic society. Civic society mainly represented by NGOs. Or, to me, civic society is informed citizens' participation in decision making. In that sense, non-government organizations are something that really representing that part. But that's what we are experiencing in this country. We have a lot of NGOs in the country, including also foreign NGOs. Hey, at the end we are in a democratic society, everybody creates whatever they want as soon as it doesn't harm the freedom of other people. That's what they're supposed to do. And organizations like the VSO and several other organizations have been instrumental to creating this spirit, if you wish. this freedom of expression of their interests and feeling that your expressed interests are accounted. And this is a part of and a parcel of, I think, a future democracy and progress in the country. Of course, some organizations have completed their mission in particular area, in particular country, etc. I understand this is the case of the CO. And other NGOs who has a mission in our next stage of development. But the good thing is, with these organizations, people have this empowerment, inspiration in what they do. Because when you try to do something, service for other people, that's what many NGOs do, then it is very much returnable to you.
What roles can the new businesses and the mining companies and the drilling companies and the construction companies that will develop, what role can they play in the social development of Mongolia?
Mining institutions.
Yes, what can they contribute to the work that the NGOs do? Can they support the NGOs? So the major problem for NGOs, and particularly BSO, is funding.
Well, you know, as economy grows up, you will have companies that share the value with you. As much as they share, they will be willing to support the causes you are working for. And plus, I wish it is here the same, but it is not. If the charitable money, if it is tax exempted, after proving that this charitable fund goes to particular causes, that will certainly benefit the whole NGOs in the country. I think this time is coming. And certainly there are Mongolian companies who are supporting the missions. Not many. I think the more economy will be competitive, more Mongolian companies will be more global companies selling other than outside of Mongolia, then this trend will be coming to us.
The mining companies and the major development projects, works that are going on, most of the experts say that they need Mongolians with the right skills and the right jobs and the right qualifications. So they have a vested interest in supporting education in Mongolia. Will they just support their own? So will the mining just support mining education, or will mining and drilling support health, and then will they support the education, the general education of the people?
Overall, the larger companies, they are more interested in a wider spectrum of the value chain, and this can be reflected in the research and development activities of certain companies, and it can involve universities, their trainings, and in particular if they are combined into a particular product that can benefit all Mongolians from. This sort of activities will be quite in line in what you are asking. But today, companies, other than a huge, large international transnationals, are relatively smaller. And however, there is a good trend that Mongolian companies are supporting education, lifelong education, and retraining. So altogether, combined, I think, with economic growth in the country, the society goes to the right direction.
So Jargil talked about Mongolia's next stage of development, and both he and Ollie seem pretty optimistic that some of these new companies and these mining companies will support small business, and they will support the next stage of development of Mongolia. For example, the Oyu Tolgoi mining company that's mining the copper, they have been spending 3 to 4 million US dollars in community projects in the South Gobi, and it's hoped that the other major companies, the Tavan Tolgoi companies, take these responsibilities seriously as well and continue this development work. Now it's quite clear that Mongolia at the moment needs foreign investment, and it needs foreign help and expertise from foreign companies. But Mongolia is quite determined to make sure that the wealth stays within Mongolia. And in the first few years while these projects are being developed, the foreign expertise will come in, but they have to have 90% Mongolian workforce by the time that the companies start making full production. So there are safeguards set into these ventures to make sure that the Mongolian people are the ones that are trained, and the Mongolian people are the ones that are skilled to do the jobs that foreign people are doing now. So VSO has 3 years remaining in Mongolia, and 3 years which we can make really count. There's still a lot of work to do. Now, I think that one of the main things that we have to do during these next 3 years is continue to empower the people on an individual level to make full use of their own potential as people, and for them to put them in the best positions possible to take advantage of this newfound wealth that's coming, and to make the most and the best of what it will bring to the Mongolian people. VSO has been here for 20 years, and they have done some fantastic work at a crucial time in Mongolia's history. And everybody, the VSO volunteers and the VSO staff, should be extremely proud of what they've been doing here. And I think that they can leave with their heads held high, knowing that they've done so much at such a crucial time in Mongolia's history. And I personally, I've only been here 3 months, but I'm enjoying it tremendously, and I find it absolutely fascinating what's happening at the moment, and I personally won't forget this time in Mongolia. So I will leave the last word to Jargal. I asked Jargal if he had a message for the VSO volunteers.
Well, for those who have been working in this country, I know you have been working in different part of the society with different conditions. However, many of you have been doing your best to improve, to help Mongolians to be independent as a person, and bringing the values that your society based on. And I'm thankful those who was doing this job, and thank you for working hard in Mongolia, and good luck for your future mission. Thank you.
Thank you very much.